There are four main bases for this symposium, if I can just outline them briefly. One is the British Academy's own contribution to debating, to some extent, the unintended consequences of current copyright law and practice in a report that the Academy published in 2006, which Hector Mcqueen, one of our speakers, oversaw. That report is still on the Academy website, and I find it a very useful document to recommend to others, since it makes clear what rights we do have to quote under current legislation, to make use of the exceptions which are an important part of British copyright law. The core of British copyright law, as you probably know, is the Copyrights, Designs and Patents Act of 1988 with its subsequent modifications. A second reference point is the Gowers report on intellectual property, which also came out in 2006. It was a busy year for copyright activity and IP activity. And the Gowers report concluded that the UK's IP system is strong, but it made 54 recommendations for improvements, mainly covering the areas of strengthening enforcement, providing additional support to business, and striking a balance between protecting intellectual property and allowing free market competition. And this Gowers report has led to an ongoing copyright reform process, which Jonathan Griffiths is, I hope, going to say something about a little later. And of course, for many people, it'll be very important to know what the outcome of these reforms, moves to reform, are going to be. There are probably two other quite topical issues or areas of activity that are in many people's minds this evening. One, I suppose, from an authorial point of view, is the Google book digitization program and the enormous controversy this has stirred up, particularly in America, I think, but all over the world. Google's plan to digitize large swathes of the contents of libraries and make this available free on the internet. That's an important issue. And of course, also very recently in the current year, the controversy surrounding the last government's digital economy bill. For some reason it's always referred to as the Digital Economy Bill, although it did in fact become an act, just about shorn of some of its original contents. So it's now the Digital Economy Act, and that of course had a very accelerated progress earlier this year in the dying weeks of the last government. And we might want to explore the implications of this, especially for those who work in digital media, work with the moving image. Of course, many of us inevitably work in digital media these days, since the digital world impinges on so much of what we do, whether we work with text or image or moving picture or music. So we have four speakers who are going to speak very briefly from their own particular expertise and experience, and then we're going to throw it open and see what happens to you. I'm going to introduce the speakers one by one as I call them. I'm going to introduce first Hector Mcqueen, who's a fellow of both the British Academy and the Royal Society of Edinburgh. He's Professor of Private Law at Edinburgh University, although he's currently on leave to serve as one of Scotland's law commissioners. They do things differently in Scotland. And he's a distinguished teacher and historian of Scottish law, including its medieval origins. But more relevant to this evening is his long-standing interest in copyright and design law. And I first encountered him when he was director of the AHRC Research Centre in Intellectual Property and Technology Law. He oversaw the production of the British Academy's Review of Copyright and Research in the Humanities, which I've mentioned. And he's going to say something about that, I think, and what he feels about the present situation.
Thank you very much.